We'll pretend it's there.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
First item, action item is expanded waiver.
At this time, I'm going to let Mark speak to this, the expansion waiver.
Okay, for those of you that may not be aware, the university has gone through the process of purchasing the church next door. And whenever I talked to TEA about moving classes over there, they said that there was a process that we had to go through. Anytime that we move off of location and to a different address, then we have to put in for an expansion amendment. Our only problem is that we cannot do an expansion amendment because we haven't been in existence for 5 years. So TEA has suggested that we request a waiver of that particular part of the law. And once that waiver is granted, then we can do an expansion amendment. So the first part of this is to permission or approval from the board to submit a waiver to TEA, and then once the waiver is approved, to submit an expansion amendment. Even though we're moving 50 feet across the street, we still have to have an amendment in place.
And
We don't have a choice.
We don't have to.
So basically what the waiver is, that once we, when we go online, we couldn't provide you a copy because it's just it's an online waiver, and you submit, you have to include the board minutes, you have to include the board date, and then if the TA approves the waiver, then you go in and you submit the amendment. So but you have to have approval for both.
And the amendments due April 1st, so we do have this.
That's the timeline, yes.
Yeah.
So we need a
motion to
submit to submit the waiver first.
I make a motion that we submit a waiver.
And it was,
Aye.
so who was that? I'm sorry, just the motion was from Mr. Humphrey and Dr. Lamb.
Second item, expansion.
So we have to have a motion that once if the waiver is approved, that we will have the board's permission to file for the expansion amendment. If the waiver is approved, it would.
So that has to be in the minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Motion that if the waiver is approved, I will do that amendment.
I'll make that motion.
You have that motion, Dr. Lamb?
I'll second it.
Second by Meyer. All in favor?
And you have the word,
Aye.
how she said to word it exactly correct.
Yes.
Okay. Will you read that exactly what she was saying?
That's it.
She said that, the board approves submission of waiver to TEA to waive the 5-year rule in order to file an expansion amendment, and it was motioned by Mr. Humphrey, and then seconded by Dr. Lamb. And then the board approved filing of expansion amendment if the waiver is approved by TEA. And Dr. Lamb made a motion and Dr. Odell seconded that motion.
Correct. And so we will actually complete those documents this afternoon, get that submitted with these board minutes, and wait to hear back. As soon as we do hear back, we will then file again if the waiver is approved, file for the amendment. And hopefully work through the process to renovate the facility and look at opportunities there to have classrooms or to have a science lab, or even there's a cafeteria there. So we've talked about potential opportunities there as well.
So make sure, Amy, that whenever you do submit for the waiver, is that we reach capacity here. We don't have any extra classrooms.
Okay.
And that our charter says that we do have to add a 10th grade.
That's Jamin submitting it.
Right. Okay.
You're not submitting it.
Okay.
Jamin are submitting it.
And if they don't do it, then it sits empty for a year.
Now, they did say we could possibly use it for offices if
Well, they don't have.
Well, they already say overall.
the offices. That's right. So we said that would be if we were in a situation and they did not approve the waiver.
So with the current temporary building,
that has offices be moved to the church and then.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
correct. So we would take this room and make it maybe an intervention classroom. We'd move everything
We
that
actually
we
have
could.
2 engineers uses for offices right now. They would just move.
So the informational items, number 5, this is just kind of a FYI. Looking at, as we've discussed several times, about the new law that has, many of you have probably read about it, just as you turn on the news, how school districts are looking at their 2016-17 school year calendar because the law has changed regarding number of minutes. The law used to be the number of days a student had to be in attendance. Now they changed it to a number of minutes. So school districts have a lot more flexibility now in developing their calendars. As you can see, there are school districts in our local area that are looking at a Monday through Thursday schedule. And they're looking at other opportunities on Fridays. They're looking at a 10-hour day on Monday through Thursday and a smaller, shorter day on Friday. They just have so much more flexibility. Some even schools are looking at an operation of keeping the same number of days, but now building in more hours now that they have that flexibility, and closing at weeks times, or closing every 2 days, here and there. So there's just a lot more flexibility for a school district in the event that they don't have to go a set number of days. It's a set number of minutes. So one thing that as well as is that affects us, because currently we do not meet the required minutes under our current schedule. And so Mark and I and Dr. Odell have spent a lot of time in Austin meeting with the Texas Charter School Association, meeting with several key individuals, looking at schedules, looking at how this affects the charter arena specifically. And what we have learned through a lot of conversations is that now they have approved for us to file for a 1-year waiver. And so with this filing, we are given the opportunity to continue to operate under our current system without being penalized financially, because the biggest concern was we couldn't afford to operate under this current system, this current number of hours and be penalized financially. So the waiver is only good for 1 year at this point, but we are being told that it's likely that
It's told that the
UT
legislature.
Systems Legislative Affairs, because it affects the other UT charters and some other charters out there. The person who filed the bill did not intend for schools to get punished like they are, and it's my understanding he plans to put in an amendment. Now, of course, the legislature could say no, and then so worst case is we get 1 more year like we are, and then we'll have to go the required number of minutes because they make no allowances for your charter or anything else.
How do online classes?
I asked that. They didn't know.
they don't really
don't know.
know.
They don't get funded the same way, though, because they get funded by completion.
That's the third operation way that they operate. We don't fall under.
So if you're in the Texas Virtual Charter Network, you get paid based on who finishes your courses, not who enrolls in your school. I know. Well, it's kind of like a MOOC.
I never opened up the doors then.
You don't, it's
Until
virtual.
the end of the year.
You run the risk with your teachers if you don't serve, your people don't finish the class, you run the risk of not getting paid. And I'm sure there's a formula there that says you will have X attrition, you know what I mean? But I have high hopes that the legislature will fix this problem, and charter schools will have will be under a different
We
expectation.
feel pretty good about that. Now, one thing that was interesting is that the waivers can be submitted by schools that currently operate under a lesser number of hours. So, for example, what's happening right now is school districts saying, "Wait a minute, charter school, you mean to tell me I can get the same amount, paid the same amount for you to come to school and just go till 1? But I've been operating under an extended time for my history of my school." And so what they're saying is that they're not, the only schools that can apply for the waivers are schools that currently do not meet the required number of minutes, which I think is interesting.
Basically, the conversation from the commissioner was, I'm going to give a 1-year waiver. It's up to us as school districts to challenge the legislation to change the law.
But we've already met. We didn't meet, but UT System legislative affairs already met with them and they're open to fixing
Is
this.
this a waiver that we have to also approve, kind of like this one?
Yeah, when the time comes.
There is, it is.
Yeah.
Kind of like we just did this.
This is not new. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this one is, we looked at the timeline on this. This one's not we have.
All the expansion amendments are due by April 1st. Any other is any time of the year.
So we looked at
just
that,
do it
there's not a
next meeting.
timeline, so we're gonna put it on the next meeting. We're working on the current schedule. Tyler ISD has posted their schedule because we try to align with some of the bigger school districts. We're waiting on Palestine to post theirs. I looked this morning, it's still not posted, and Longview ISD has not posted theirs as well. Not that we copy theirs, but we do try to stay aligned because we do still have families that, attend both schools. So that's one of our things that we're looking at currently.
And on the waiver, the idea was if we decided to try to meet the law and fight it later, they've set it up so you can't ever go back. So
That was another thing that we learned during our meetings. So this year, if we decide, okay, we're going to extend it, and we find that next year they approve that charter schools have the opportunity to operate under a lesser time frame, is that, sorry,
Can't go back.
when you decided to meet the law, you can't go back. And so really interesting when we really did look to change our schedule. I mean, we've had probably about 10 conversations
that's
at the
because
table
we
because we
mandated.
thought that it was mandated. And then we said, well, let's go ahead and do it because we don't think that they're going to change it anyway. Then they said, okay, if you ever do it, if you go back this year or next year and you decide to meet the requirement, you're stuck. You never go back unless you write a whole nother charter somewhere. So kind of interesting how.
We will be applying for that waiver.
Yes. All right, that's everything I have at this
We are
time.
adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Our shortest meeting ever.
Free lunch, think of it that way.
Just stop recording.
Yeah.